Okay, so looks like a few more folks are trickling in. Hi, everyone. Thank you again for taking the time out of your day to join us. My name is Danny Obaseki, VP of Sales here at GMS, now a Sherweb company for those of you that don't know. Very exciting things going on around here, and very excited about today's presentation as we'll be discussing how to structure your sales team for rapid growth. Before I sort of delve into and introduce our speaker, just a little bit of a background story. Met Vernon at various channel events over the last number of years, and late last year saw and caught up with him in Orlando, I believe, at NASCI event. After a wonderful conversation, I grabbed his book for the plane ride back home to Canada, and it was very fascinating. I've actually read it again. Vernon, for those of you that don't know him, has 20 plus years as a sales leader, built and sold multiple technology companies. And if you're poised for growth, you're going to enjoy listening to Vernon today, discussing how to set up your sales team, large, medium, or small, for success. There are a ton of revenue generating opportunities for managed service providers, IT solution providers, managed security service providers, and having the right team in place is critical in monetizing these opportunities, whether it's digital transformation and its acceleration over the last number of years, cloud opportunities, which Sherweb can help, services from a Helpdesk and NOC standpoint, which GMS can help, or security, which is top of mind these days. Okta, I think, was just breached, unfortunately, today. So things are moving at breakneck speed. So that being said, allow me to introduce you to the channel veteran, Vernon Harrison. Please take it away, sir.
Thank you, Danny. I will add, yes, it was Orlando, I think, where we decided to do something together. And as part of that conversation, we were sitting out outside the sort of the activity in the perimeter, and we started to talk, and we were talking about ways that I don't know what my slide deck is doing here. It seemed to be jumping, and my apologies. But we started talking about things that we could do to help bring value to, and that's when Dan invited me to participate in your webinar series. So let's get started. This is a comment I like to make all the time, and that is great sales professionals are made, and they can sell in any economy. And I hope you find that either controversial or challenging, because those of you who are in the audience today who think that sales professionals are born, or I can assure you that is not the case. And I've carried a bag myself, and there's a lot that goes into that. But Danny mentioned a little bit about myself, but I started CRO Leader a couple of years ago. Been a consultant since about 2013, helping MSPs and really focusing on the MSP business. I have startup experience. I really believe in DISC behaviorals and how important they are to what we're doing here. And one of my clients experienced 300% growth in 1 year by adopting my methodologies, an established company with a sales team. And actually, I want to mention something before I go on any further. That the foundations and the precepts that I'm going to introduce you today are, of course, easier to implement in largely staffed companies or companies that have sales teams. But I can assure you, if you are an MSP and you're sitting there all by yourself, these processes and they still matter, and there is a way to get there, and they will affect your growth. So if you have any questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat. We're going to have a Q&A section in the end also. But if you have on any of these methodologies, how to adapt them into your size team, I do have answers for that I may or may not cover in the presentation. And so I've focused on best practices for a few years, but at the end of the day, I want you to know that I have carried a bag, I've owned a business, I've been a channel manager, I've managed sales teams, and so you'll always find a lot of empathy in what I have to offer. but I've been blessed with the gift of observation and discernment. And so these best practices and the things that have worked, I have not only been able to recognize, I've been blessed enough to be able to adapt them into my own methodologies, and they have resulted in my own success. As a matter of fact, I wrote a book. It's called the MSP Owner's Manual, and I wrote this book last year when or a couple of years ago I started it, but I published it last year when I found there were so many folks who really couldn't afford a consultant, were doing a variety of different things. And I started to write the book, and I sat down, and it ended up becoming something I didn't expect. The title wasn't going to be the MSP Owner's Manual, but it has 50 separate chapters. And the methodology from this book is, I believe, is that you read it through once, sort of start to finish. It's like the owner's manual in your glove box, only unlike the owner's manual in your glove box, which I don't recommend reading through, it should be something you keep by for where it's needed, and reference it when rethinking maybe your LinkedIn strategy or your website strategy, or what to do about this or what to do about that. Just take a look at that chapter guide. And so from the book, the book is a great starting point for those of you who are beginning to grow a sales process. It's CRO Leader, the company I started a couple of years ago. We have but one goal and one objective, and that's to help you achieve sustainable growth one level at a time. One of the things I discovered about one-size-fits-all solutions is, one, that they're good, but that you're not always in a position to leverage them. So hopefully through what you garnish today, if you're investing in lead generation or appointment setting, you'll be in a better position to leverage that investment. Or when you look at one-size-fits-all marketing solutions, you'll be able to better leverage what they offer you based on the type of company you have and where you are in your place in life. And the same holds true with vendor offerings. Vendor offerings are fantastic in that they give you lots of great material and pitch, but it's got to fit what you're offering. So let's focus now on the 4 precepts to making great sales professionals. And I will go in depth into each of these. The foundation is the sales rep themselves. There's a few key things here that must be accomplished. Listen, smart, the right disc, and an industry experience, although it's on the list. I want to emphasize that that's something that you can provide. And why you would choose to provide it versus hire it typically depends upon how much you want to pay for a sales professional, and or somebody you can meet early in their career or has a gift and might like to make an industry change. Sometimes that can save you money, but you're the one that's going to invest in the experience. A methodology, and here I say company-wide. We'll talk a little bit, we'll delve into good sales methodologies, but they must be company-wide. Environment. Sales don't live on an island, but deals die on them. Company has to understand that, yes, you are, as a technology company, you're very good at offering technical solutions, keeping people's environments up and running, but you should also recognize that you exist because you have clients. And it's a better existence with more clients. Everyone in your environment should understand that you expect to and want to grow, not just you as the owner or not just you as the sales guy. And so when you have that sort of environment, then everything is conducive to treating a prospect and growing the business. It all falls back on leadership. These are the 4 key attributes to a world-class leader. And again, I will get into each of these a little bit more. So let's start with foundation. Again, above average intelligence. Listen, we're all a good judge of, we know smart people when we see them, but I would look for people who are quick, potentially quick-witted, not necessarily sarcastic, but probably more important than their sarcasm or quick-wit is their DISC. For those of you who are not familiar with DISC, DISC is a behavioral assessment. It is not intelligence and it's not experience. And they must be a DI, which stands for dominance, and I is for influence. The other DISC acronym stands for steadiness and compliance. Your best technicians are typically high C's and high S's. Your best sales professionals are always DI. The dominance will give them the ability to not only swallow no or accept it when it happens, it also gives them the ability to drive when being pushed back, too easily. If a sales professional doesn't have a high D and they're told, yeah, not at this time, they move on. Or if they lose a deal, someone loses a deal that they really feel like they should have won, it's the D that allows them to, brush them off, rub a little dirt on it, and stand up and go out and attack it again. I is influence. I is large talkers, loves people, makes friends everywhere. It's an attribute, a people-loving attribute that really allows you to get wide and to network and get into places you need to be. Now, again, I mentioned they must know your industry and your product. However, here's something that I think is different about how I approach that. Yes, I understand the value an MSP has to offer, and I do not just go out and talk about it. What makes a really great sales professional here is not the ability to talk about it, but to be able to discern what the prospect really needs that you have to offer and only talk about that. What is important to your prospect, even your own client base when it comes to account manager? You should be able to articulate that value which you can bring to that problem. Otherwise, you're nothing more than a commercial for your company, which will make you sound like everybody else. So not only is it a great differentiator, it allows you to teach and empathize with your clients. So there's the foundation of a sales professional. Okay, next is a methodology. You must have a methodology that is embraced company-wide. I highly recommend question-based selling. It is exactly how it sounds. I define question-based selling as you never have to ask for a PO because you've already asked enough of the right questions for someone to have already made up their mind that they have a need that you can fulfill. Now, the challenger sale is the next level. What the difference between question-based selling and the challenger sale is where your great closers are bringing value to their clients through what I refer to as, and they refer to as, teach. The challenger sales professionals are considered assets to their clients. I had a very successful career in the 90s selling storage, all levels of storage, because I came from a technical background. And you combined that with the fact that I had been a business owner, the ability to have empathy and relate to my clients, but I didn't talk about the technology. I didn't talk about the speeds and feeds. I talked about what that technology could do for that company. A great example of this for an MSP is if you focus on the healthcare, have you ever asked any of your clients if we could sit down together and maybe look at how technology might be able to get them to see more patients per hour? It's a question that I've posed to prospects while working for MSPs and been out with their sales professionals. And I can tell you every time the question is asked, the results are amazing. By the way, the first time I asked the question, I was sitting with an owner in front of a client, and the doctor looked at me and goes, "Can you do that?" And the owner I was sitting with had a look of horror in his eyes and shock. But I looked back at the client and said, "No, I don't know if I can. But I know that I looked at some of your technology out there, and I think we could address some of it, and maybe we could improve that." And so what was different from me and anybody else was me being out there telling them how I'm just going to make sure they never go down and their phones are always working and their data is secure. Instead, I looked at something that matters to the doctor. And let's face it, technology can help any business see more clients per hour. Now let's talk about the environment. The environment is something that I mentioned earlier. If you don't have a sales team that you can start on, the environment is, no great sales professional when interviewing is going to come to work for a company that they don't think they can succeed in. So let's talk about it. There must be a process. We must track far beyond, and we'll get into greater detail on KPIs, but KPI is a term used all over the place now, and we must be tracking the right KPIs, and we should be giving KPI as well as revenue quotas. Just don't hire a sales guy and tell him if you don't sell $1 million this year, you're fired. You should hire a sales professional and say, these are the things that have to be accomplished. And they're different for each company depending upon your market and where you are and how good at different aspects you are at it. And again, I'll review in a little later slide implementing some of the KPIs and why some of your numbers, it's not bad that some of yours have to be higher or lower. What's important to note is where your KPI numbers need to be to achieve success. And if you don't have a lot of quotes out there, and if you're not meeting with a lot of clients, your KPIs are key because they're the path to that. We must have rules of engagement internally, when to bring in the technical team, when not to, when to take the owner out. In many cases, the owner is the sales professional. I highly recommend that if you're thinking of hiring your first sales professional, that you have done it first. And of course, accountability through responsibility charts. And you must always continue to train and role play. And by the way, role playing is something that I do with my SDRs, my sales development reps, every single day. Every morning, we spend anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes role playing what will happen on calls. And I can tell you that the amount of productivity and improvement my SDRs have had, and by the way, for me, SDRs live for one thing, and that is getting appointments, setting up first meetings ever. And I role play with the same SDRs every day, different challenges and different answers. Sometimes it goes 25 minutes, sometimes it goes 20 minutes, and sometimes to just blow off a little steam, we pretend we're crazy, inappropriate clients. But either way, there's a chapter in the book on role playing, an essential thing to do. Again, if you're one owner right now looking to grow your company, role play in front of your wife. Ask your wife to be a client. Ask her to be difficult in an unwilling to purchase your service way, not in a jerky way, so that you can practice and be prepared to meet those challenges. And the first one you should overcome is I'm busy now, or maybe at a later time, or send me some information. Those are role-playing challenges that sales professionals reach every day. And if they can't overcome them, you should stop. You should either train that sales professional or move on from. By the way, when I interview sales professionals, I role play in the interview. It is a great opportunity to see how people, potential candidates, react. My favorite one is when they say, let's do it. I already know I've probably got the right guy. Now let's talk about marketing. First off, your list. Are you talking to the right client? We've developed an ideal client profile score here where I will tell you that talking to the right people, quality over quantity, is significant. I recently had a new member of my team that was doing some ICP scoring in our own process and in our own marketing, and she was blown away. She was actually endorsing what's happening with the results of our marketing to a very small number of people. We were achieving results over the last company she came from with a list of, I think we did some particular thing. We had a list of about 1,000 people we were focusing on, and she came from a company that was marketing to 50,000 people, and we were getting not a better percentage, we were getting better numbers, we were getting better responses. And the point is that because we had the ideal client profile, we were talking to the right people. Just because your sales guy can get a lot of meetings doesn't mean they're good meetings. Very, very important. And again, I'll drill into it. You do need a database of ICPs. You have to have that. And then you need a tiered marketing sequence. And a tiered marketing sequence is, I have a 20 to 25 step process. I take every qualified contact through until I've exhausted myself and say, okay, I'm done. I'm done with you. And in particular, I will tell you that I typically never get to the bottom of that before I either bail on them or they bail on us for the right reasons. And your content that you're marketing with should always have teaching in mind. Even if you tell something to somebody that they know, okay, at least they'll say, yes, you get it. Your content shouldn't be about, I mean, obviously you have to boast and brag about your guarantees and the importance of what you do. But teaching about how many breaches are, broadcasting, how many breaches occur in a second, or how many times you, that is teach content, or the consequences that most small businesses go out of business. You can get teach content from Sherweb and GMS. They've got some great content on things that will happen if you don't use their services, and that, or if your clients aren't embracing those services, and that's the messaging. The messaging is, this is what's going to happen. In real estate, they always say in real estate, it's location, location, location. I think for MSPs, it's teach content, and teach content. Very important. So that's the environment. World-class sales leadership. No disrespect, but most MSPs like myself, when I started my own, I was getting an engineering degree. I was making good money on the side, fixing stuff and fixing computers. I don't want to tell you how old I am, but I used to solder chips on motherboards, and so other companies were bringing the stuff in. That's how we started. We were really good at keeping systems up, building computers, changing hard drives, keeping networks up, setting up networks. So our leadership comes, quite frankly, from technical. Sales leadership is something that you must have in your environment, or at a minimum, understand it. So in the Challenger sale, they surveyed 12,000 sales professionals and 2,500 sales managers as to the importance of the skill set of a good sales manager. And at the bottom of the list was the ability to manage. Now, when I say the ability to manage, that's about telling them what time they're supposed to come to work, and managing the pipeline and presenting it to this group or that group, or dealing with HR issues when they come up, right? How many we need, how many we don't need of one each. It's important skill to have, but at the end of the day, it's typically the skill that when those who are interviewing for sales managers emphasize on. Well, how good have you done? How many people have you managed? What was the size of the environment you were managing? Okay. And I can assure you that world-class sales leaders, and I've been blessed to work with some great ones. So the first one I want to emphasize here today is innovation. Innovation is about being able to coach or drive your sales professional in an actual opportunity when it's starting to slip away, or differentiating yourself from the others that are out there. Like I say, when I'm leading your sales guys, or the sales professionals that I lead, they're not talking about how great you are out of the gate. Instead, they're investigating what the client needs, where the pain's at, where they're spending too much money. And they're making sure that they understand the client's SLAs, their potential prospects' competitiveness and growth within their own industry, some of their own company objectives, to interweave into the conversations that they're having with them, to emphasize how we as an MSP can support those objectives. And it's that kind of innovation that will keep you into the sales job, into accounts. Coaching. It's about coaching, not a sales team, not telling them you need to embrace this methodology or that methodology, but it really is about taking that particular individual's strengths and weaknesses and making sure that you help them where they're weak and encourage them where they're strong, and know the difference, so that whoever's working for you on a level that they can achieve the best that they can achieve. They appreciate being coached. I have a sales rep that I haven't represented this company for over a year, who still calls me once a week with questions and to vent, and to how I would respond to that. And I really appreciate that, because it helps me stay on top of my game. And last year he won Salesman of the Year for his company. In fact, I'm no longer with the account, so I asked him to include me in his acceptance speech, but I don't think he did. They also have the ability to sell. If your sales manager can't sell your product, how can he ask others to do it? That's all I'm really going to say about that. In fact, if you're smaller, I believe a sales manager, depending upon how many folks they should manage, should always be managing a small percentage of accounts themselves. All right, now we talked about those 4 precepts. Let's talk about implementing them. And this is, again, where the smaller companies have a tendency to get thrown for a loop. Again, you need to have sales leadership. No, you can't go hire a sales manager. You can buy my book, another shameless plug, okay? And you can buy the Challenger sale and things like that. But at the end of the day, you're just recognizing that the fact there is sales leadership, there is a void there, there's a gap there, and it's got to improve, that it is different than other leadership. Because remember, as the owner of the company, as somebody leading a sales team, the success and failure begins and ends with you, both from an action standpoint and a responsibility standpoint. This is the ideal sales team. SDRs live for setting up first meeting ever. That's all they do. I found through best practices and years of experience that those who were closing deals weren't always good at getting meetings, and those who were good at getting meetings weren't always good at closing deals. And by separating those roles when feasible, okay, resulted in a much higher output from that division. I no longer ask my closers to set up their own meetings. By the way, great closers do. They do set up their own meetings. They're capable of setting up their own meetings. The hungry ones never stop. But I do hire SDRs and insist that SDRs live for that. And again, and by the way, SDRs is sometimes a great playground for people who want to grow up to be closers. But I also know a lot of SDRs who love being there. They love that first contact. They love those first engagements. They're tenacious and they're good at meeting people. So let me define now what a closer is. A closer is not a fast-talking, high-pressure person. A closer is someone who recognizes what the prospect needs and is able to align a message to your offerings, and also coming into your company and saying, this is what we need to win this client to bring it over. Yes, we do everything, but this is where we need to emphasize. Aligning your structure with what they need is what a closer does best. The most successful ones, I've always been doing that. Under my the SPs and SDRs that I manage, we close 80% of our deals. 80% of our deals that go to proposal. By the way, part of that is we don't propose if we don't believe we can win. We don't propose when we think someone is just price shopping. But we know that through asking all the right questions and really understanding the client. We won't quote a deal where we don't believe we're bringing value. Account managers, those are after the deal is closed. Those are the folks that are focused on making sure your clients stay compliant into what they're supposed to do for you to protect them and give them a good offering, especially today with security, and also make sure that they're satisfied. By the way, that's just not kissing and hugging all the time. That's about bringing to you, the company, grumblings within your client base, and also making sure that they get addressed even though they're not your problem. We've got to make sure we articulate the right message to the client that they're having this problem because of their own actions. And it has to be done in the right way. It takes a certain personality in account managers. I think these are good bartenders, and of course, because they're good bartenders, they're always asking you if you want another drink, which would be a euphemism for making sure that what's on your line card is being served to all your clients. So that's sort of the first step, is understanding those roles. And again, these roles, if you're a single owner of the company right now, all of these roles are embraced by you. And for those of you who have smaller companies, 1 or 2 sales professionals, 1 sales professional, 1 SDR, I have great strategies. You can reach out to me. More than happy to talk to you about how you can get the best out of each role as you expand. The second, again, is the KPIs. As I mentioned earlier about the KPIs, this may look a little bit about micromanagement, but I believe that the silver bullet is first meetings ever. You're not going to be bringing in new clients if you're not talking to new people. And as I emphasized earlier, they have to be the right people. Okay, so we look at marketing qualified contacts with a high ICP score. My ICP score chart for my own company, CRO Leader, goes to 40. I market differently to somebody who's between 30 and 40 than I do 20 to 30. And those under 20, I market completely different and spend little time chasing them down or driving it or setting up meetings because they're not an ideal fit for me. I can't bring the value to them. All of them should buy my book. Another shameless plug. Okay, LinkedIn is such an important tool, and you need to track these activities. Now here in this particular chart, these are some pretty good averages. Okay, if you want to close a deal a month, okay, or at least a deal, or at a minimum a deal a quarter, you need to have an FME every week. Okay, you need to have that, and you need to be, making 250 calls a week, within your system. Or 1,000 emails sent a week. And so all of these formulas that you see here are typically around the success criteria for closing a new deal every month or quarter. And by the way, marketing qualified leads, the difference between a marketing qualified contact is something that you identified that you can bring value to. A lead simply means they know you exist in one form or fashion. Attended one of your webinars, opened one of your emails, came to one of your events, gave you their card. The difference between a contact and a lead is they have some inkling of your existence. I don't measure that. And at the end of the day, you should always track how many proposals you have out there, okay? And how many of those proposals have actually been presented. And for those of you who send over proposals versus presenting them, I'll be nice on this call. Don't do it. Always present your proposal. In fact, I've been so adamant in cases, I've literally had to tell clients, I am so sorry, I cannot just send you my proposal. It is company policy. I don't want to lose my job. I don't want to disrespect you. You must always present your proposal, particularly if you'd like to get up to where you're closing 80% of them. Here's an ICP score. Again, I'll send you a copy of this. For those of you attending the call, this is where we take certain criteria depending upon your vertical, and we give them a score around verticals, distance from your office, whether they're using an MSP today. And by the way, if they're using an MSP today, okay, a lot of sales folks say, well, they already got one. Seriously, they're already buying what you're selling. That should make it your number one reason to go see them. You're better than they are. You don't have to be unique. You just need to be better than who they're using. So clean up your list using an ICP scorecard. The results will be amazing. I just want to do a plug on 4 books that I highly recommend you read. Question-Based Selling is a simple read, challenger sale. Also, Owners, Traction by Gino Wickman. If you haven't heard about it, it's absolutely amazing. We teach and train on traction. I do traction implementation for MSPs. I don't do traction implementation for other companies. I only do it for MSPs. And if you do nothing else, take a look at their VTO, their Vision Traction Organizer. That's sort of a short and long-term plan on how you get there. I promise you, if you read these 4 books and start to embrace these methodologies, your business will grow without any outside support. You will become a better growth-oriented entrepreneur sales leader if you just by starting to read and implement these 4 books. I have so many more that I can suggest. Anything around John Maxwell, who is the world-renowned leadership guru. But at the end of the day, this is where you should spend some time and money. All right, now we'll open it up for any questions if anybody has any. I don't know how that works. I don't know, Danny, if you can let them in, give them the ability to speak, or if somebody typed any in, but do we have any?
None have been typed in, but awesome content so far. And I was actually taking notes here. So, and I'm guilty of one of the things. Always, my key takeaway, Vernon, always present your proposal. I've been doing this for 17 years, and sometimes I email proposals. So I'll try not to do that. That's great.
Well, it can be crazy, and I really overemphasize it. Sometimes, back in there were times in the 90s where we used to send unsolicited proposals to get attention, but that wasn't an official proposal, right? And so by presenting your proposal, you put yourself in a position to meet the objection to your proposal as it's happening in real time. Okay, and remember your proposal. When I introduce a proposal, I tell the client too, before I even start it, and the reason I need to present it is I need to make sure that I am meeting what you have asked me to accomplish, that I am meeting your needs. So presenting it is the only way I can do that.
I completely would echo that statement, and it resonated with me just because, number one, I have no control over what they feel when they receive the proposal. Instant objections can be definitely talked about and have the ability to turn that around. So I will not be doing that anymore. So thank you.
And quite frankly too, it's deeper than that. When I'm presenting to the CEO, when the owner of the company, when the head doctor is looking at the practice, okay, a lot of times he just wants to know the cost. Okay, so sometimes, believe it or not, I actually start there. So how and who you're presenting to has a lot to do with whose pain points you're addressing, who are you satisfying. And so a lot of times with the owners, we're finding a lot of different verticals like legal and healthcare really care about data integrity and security right now. So I address those out of the gate, but I quickly get to the price. What a CEO is looking for is, one, confidence you can do it. And they're not looking for how, they're looking for confidence you can do it. If you're dealing with technical folks, they may be, like your sort of co-managing IT. They may want to see a little more of that technical. What technologies are you using? Who's backup software, who's security software. They may be more interested in that. But the higher you go up the stack, they're more interested in confidence and cost. So it also, when delivering it, it's important to note who you're talking to, including monitoring their disk.
Absolutely. What are your suggestions for MSPs? And does it matter about their size? Do you think MSPs generally should focus on a specific vertical once they know their core strengths, or have a sort of machine gun approach and target any and everyone?
So, great question, because it really has a lot to do with geography. Okay, somewhere in Iowa, I had an MSP who also owned a restaurant, by the way, and a payroll service, right? And they weren't mega rich. These were not, it just was a small community, and they looked at things that their clients needed. So they were very horizontal. They were serving a geography, and they were coming up with solutions that geography needed. However, the more you verticalize, the better you can invest in your marketing, and the more valued of an asset that you can be to a particular community. That doesn't mean you have to choose one vertical. And so if you're trying to choose a vertical, I always suggest you take a look at who your clients are. What vertical do they fit in? And you'll be surprised what percentage of them will tell you what is your best vertical. And then you'll start to realize, well, yeah, I'm managing 6 doctors' offices because I'm really good at, helping them, do their billing or their transferring, or, I get, my wife's a nurse, whatever it is, right? That, I was pre-med before I failed out. You'll find that there's some underlying reason why you're focusing on that vertical, and it's bring value. Then once you choose a vertical, then you can start to go to the same meetings and clubs that they go to. You can participate in HIMSS if you're doing a certain vertical. You can, join the local law organizations. If you invest in trade shows and marketing, again, you can have much more a much preferred list, a smaller list, so you can talk to those folks. So that's what the value that comes from a vertical, quite frankly, is. It also reduces your investment in marketing to them.
Cool.
Verticals are key. But
Absolutely.
if I want you to leave with one key goal to grow your business today, whether you picked up anything on foundation or sales leadership, it's FMEs, talking to the new and right people. Such a short and easy sentence, but by far one of the hardest things to do, but it should be the number one goal. And I like to use dating analogies for this, because remember, I do the ICP score. You could find the person of your dreams, but how do you get them to talk to you, right? And sometimes you do silly and extraordinary things, and the same should hold true in marketing, okay? But at some point, showing them you can bring value to them. But the FME is definitely the silver bullet. And I encourage you to really think about that and what you're doing around that. And if you're using an appointment setting company or a lead generation company, I would also make sure that you're driving them. Yes, you driving them to only provide you with leads or meetings that really align with places you can bring value, and not just providing you with meetings and leads so they can check that box. And that's on you. There's a lot of great lead generation companies out there that will help you get to that FME, a lot of appointment setting companies. But remember, their job is to get you a lead and get you an appointment. It's your job to drive them to the right ones you want.
Thank you. And that was actually one of my other takeaways from reading your book a number of times, is FMEs, and huge opportunity to have a good first impression with that prospective customer and make it as impactful as possible.
I mean, you want to make first impressions, right? Now,
Yeah.
and I'm with you too. You only get one chance to make a first impression, but I would also add another saying I like to add after that is, you can never say the wrong thing to the right person. And that is true and untrue. But at the end of the day, when you've met the right person, even if you say the wrong thing, you know in your heart you can bring that prospect value, and you're more apt to even plead, if not suggest, a second chance. You know, when you really understand that the person you're talking to could benefit from working with your company, you will find that you don't have to put your sales guy hat on. You're almost you just turn on your servant's heart. I want to help you. Sure, I'm charging you for it, but that all comes from, you know, embracing the methodologies that allow you to understand that. Remember, the more questions you ask, it's not like they're going to slip through your hands. The more idea that you can have that you want to help them out. So,
And in terms of one of the things you mentioned was, and I like the analogy with when you said real estate was location, location, location. Marketing, MSPs, it's content, teach content, teach content, teach content. What would you suggest as one of the best vehicles for doing that? Blog?
so I think, yeah, that's a great question. Boy, that's a tough one because I don't know if there is a best vehicle. You know, people say email campaigns don't work, but I'll quote Yogi Berra. You know, no one goes to that restaurant anymore because the line's too big. Well, then why are we getting, why are we getting 1,000 emails a day? It's a numbers game. I think the method of delivery. This goes back to verticalizing too. Okay, imagine if you could. Actually, I remember I was doing a dark web campaign. We all know about the dark web. We know what's out there. And, you know, they had this campaign to go out. And we were just about to send it. And I said to the folks in marketing before we send it, I said, who invented the dark web? And they were like, how would we know? And I said, did you know it was invented by the military? And they were like, why? And they said, so people could spy without getting caught or killed behind enemy lines. And the next campaign went out and said, you know, you literally had a question. They put it right. Did you know the military invented the dark web? We know why. And they had more clicks and more reads on that than, do you know if your password's out on the dark web? That's teach content. Being creative around how you deliver it is important too. Question-based selling is about curiosity. So your teach content. If you go into a vertical, spontaneous question I've asked that I'm writing, and I want you to plagiarize if you're working in healthcare. If you're sitting with a dentist and you say, hey, if I could help you see more patients and fill more teeth in an hour, how would that change your life? Not, would that help? How would that change your life? How would that affect this practice? Right? And because it starts a great conversation. Okay, well, how much time are you doing this, or this? My dentist has a tremendous amount of technology at the chair. When they take my x-rays, they show up right in a screen right there. Right, I get to look at them, so so just how is technology helping that company? If it's a law firm, how are they leveraging that database? If it's important data, how are they affecting the integrity? If they're a company that has a large turnover, how are they protecting that environment from past and present employees and things like that? Those are the things that people want to, so if you went to, a company, I don't know, say a restaurant that has hundreds of employees, and you say, we can help you stop sending a paycheck to somebody who doesn't work here anymore, right? Or how do you know? I mean, that's teach content. So it really looks at the vertical, how you deliver it, or the methodology you deliver it with it to, I think is the same. It's about emails, it's about postcards, snail mails coming back. It's about dropping by and knocking on the door. If you look at my KPI document, stopping in. I've literally walked into a client and said, hey, is Danny there? And they like, do you have an appointment? And I say, no. And I say, but I sent Dan about 10 emails. And I really, all I want to know is, what does it take to get about 10 minutes of Dan's time? Because I know he's an important guy. I know he owns this company, probably hates sales guys, but I'm just looking for 10 minutes. And in fact, 9 out of 10 times they'll go get Danny, and I'll tell Danny right there, I'll say, Danny, you give me 10 minutes, I promise you, you can get me out of your life. You know, more importantly, maybe we'll find common ground and reasons why I shouldn't. And so, again, creating curiosity and bringing in that 10 minutes, I've got to ask enough questions to make sure I can bring value to them. And when you do, you're in. And by the way, I do count that as an FME, just so you know. If you can talk somebody out of a back room, that's an FME. I don't, shaking hands and trading cards at a trade show doesn't count. So you got to be like Danny and I. We got to sit in the corner and talk to each other till we find out we can have value and help each other out. And you guys have that. You know, I want to say something about MSPs. A lot of clients I engage, you know, when we start talking about marketing, they say they want to sound different. And, you know, I don't disagree with that. But at the end of the day, if I'm looking for a restaurant, I'm looking for a restaurant. Okay. Yeah. Am I looking for you know, a fine meal, Mexican, you know, a pub burger, right? You know, there are differences. But when it comes to managed service providers, I think what you really need to strive for is to be the best and to be able to claim you're the best. Okay. Because unlike food, nobody wants to mess around with their technology. And so whatever they're consuming there, to stay within my pun, okay, they want to know it's going to be the best. It's going to be the safest. They're not going to die from eating it, you know? And so strive to be the best and emphasize that in your advertising too. Although it's not teach methodology, some teach methodology can be, you know, it's like 0 days since last breach. You know, 0 days since one of our clients has been breached. Okay, and now that's not necessarily your responsibility that they have. So you might want to put an asterisk that because of us. You know, because typically it's not you anyways.
I think Jordan's going to step in here and ask some questions. Apparently,
Sure.
There were a ton of questions that I can't see, but he has access to them. So.
Let's go, Jordan.
Yeah. Thanks, Danny. So this is Jordan. We're probably going to run out of time before we answer all of them. So we'll try to get these answered afterwards.
Yeah, we can email some of the questions after.
Okay, I'll try to do short, quick answers then. I love to talk.
Okay.
Aye.
Sure. So I'll start with a couple. So one was how to get in touch with you and where to buy your book. So maybe we can just share that after the webinar.
Okay. Actually, let me just say a quick thing about this. It is available on Amazon, and for everybody that's on this call, there is a discount code MSP50 that will give them half off. And we're having trouble with the code on Amazon. So for the next 48 hours, we're going to knock it from $49.95, which is what I charged Danny, to $24.95. Sorry, Danny, no refund.
That's all right.
Next question.
So one of the questions was about base versus commission recommendations.
Oh, I was going to ask that one.
So what was it? What was the first part about versus commission?
Base. So base versus commission.
Oh, base versus commission or compensation in general. You know, that is a great question. And there's a lot of different ways to pay sales professionals. Okay. So for SDRs, I bonus them on FMEs. Okay. And particularly FMEs within a time period. And we can talk more about that. But, you know, this whole 60-40 split thing, look, I want my sales professionals to be making six figures. How we get there is really determined upon the market. And I know this is a vague answer, but I will say this, that you got to have enough base pay so they can pay their bills. You don't want to have enough base pay so they're living on it. So anybody that's on this call, they can get my phone number from the website. We can talk more about it. But the best comp plans I have seen, okay, do a commission and they only do it for 2 years. Okay, not forever. They do it for 2 years. And what's good about this is, so you close a deal, I pay you a bonus on the deal for the year, and on the anniversary of that deal, when it renews, I pay you again. Okay, what'll happen is when you start to have successful sales professionals, at some point they're walking away from a year's worth of bonuses. Okay, and so that was the best. I do have an ideal compensation plan that I don't have up here, but I think that you could expect to pay, if you're using in-house SDRs, $40,000 to $50,000 a year in base. I know it seems high. You can do lower, but or maybe 40 to 50 for a compensation plan if you're allowing the will to work them remotely. I think a good closer is going to be anywhere from 65 to 85. But I'd like to think a good closer is making $1.50 or north of that. And I will tell you, when I am managing an environment, I demonstrate to that sales professional with a 3-year investment in us and their time, how I will get them up to that mark and beyond for the rest of their career with my company. You expect good salespeople, good sales professionals will invest themselves in a market too, in an environment that they can be successful in. Okay, so it's a growing skill. Has a lot to do about where they're coming from and where they've been. So anybody who really wants to discuss that on a one-on-one basis within their environment, I would love to take that call at no charge. Next question.
Yeah, there's a question about how to initiate conversations to understand the client's needs.
Well, I always start my meetings with a prospect. And so if any of you ever sit down with me and want to talk about maybe how CRO Leader, I can tell you what the first 2 questions I'm going to ask. What do you do here? Even though you're an MSP, I'm going to ask you what you do here. So I say, so what do you guys do here? What is this practice? What does that mean to be a schlickanakiness? What do you fix, right? And then my next question is that, how did you come to work here? How did you come to start this business? You will find the answers from those 2 questions will really give you a great foundation. I've had people say to me, well, why do you care? And I've got one answer for everybody who asks me that question. How can I help you if I don't know what you do? As how you perceive it. So that for me, the greatest starting question, it is tell me about this company. How did you start it? How did you get in here? And if they work there, how did you get here? How do you get that job? Great conversations. In fact, Danny, next time you and I are sitting at a trade show, I'm going to ask you that question. I don't think I've ever asked you that. So
No.
But you get great answers from it, and you'll get great motivations about that person, and you learn about that company and what's important to them. So next question.
So there's a question about what niche you would be looking at if you were starting an MSP right now.
Wow. I think if you're starting an MSP right now, you're smart. There's over 50,000 of them in the USA, and there's much more need. As technology has evolved, the need for your own internal IT staff has really diminished and becomes far and far unnecessary. The question I would ask myself, though, is do I want to be an MSP or an MSSP? And I don't want to open this can of worms this late in the game, but I'm of the belief that over the next few years, you're going to see evolving MSSPs that are not MSPs, and that they can be owned by the same company, that truly security is within its own silo, and that MSSPs are also the security for even Fortune 100 companies. So if you're starting today and you really want to focus on security, I would consider becoming an MSSP and outsourcing Helpdesk to another MSP, because again, I think over the next few years they're going to evolve. At the end of the day, I would also say if you're starting an MSP, take a good hard look at these products out there, try to streamline your line card, and take advantage, shameless plug for Danny, of offerings like they have. Danny, am I wrong in saying anybody who builds their own NOC today is crazy? Sorry for those of you guys who have a NOC.
I wouldn't say crazy, but we can help. And I would echo your comments earlier that the market is pushing at traditional MSPs to offering security products. And I'm not sure if every MSP is built out to become an MSSP, but and this is not like I don't make any money off of this, but there are tons of organizations out there that can help, that you can partner with to bridge that gap. Actually, including Sherweb, who is like Office Protect, which is a security M365 monitoring security solution that plays a part in helping you from a security standpoint, build a fence around your clients' different networks. So I absolutely would echo that comment.
Yes, and even as you go down those road with the products, I do believe they're administered and managed by an MSP. But the best analogy I heard for an MSP having full responsibility over your security is like asking a pitcher to call his own balls and strikes. So, right? And I thought that was a great analogy that, yeah, how do I really know I'm getting a fastball down the middle, right? And you've got to have a referee. And I think, like I say, at some point, that's truly what the MSSP comes. So the lines are a little foggy there, but I would also say leveraging products out there. I met a guy a couple of years ago. I couldn't believe it. It was a multi-million-dollar MSP with only 3 employees. He was outsourcing everything. By the way, that's a sales guy. That's a sales guy.
I think we're unfortunately almost out of time here. We do have all your questions, and we will get you all answers. Thank you all so much for taking the time to join us today. Hopefully you now know why I read Vernon's book twice, and I'm probably going to do it again on my next trade show.
Keep it nearby. Keep it nearby. At the end of the day, Danny and I are both here to help you guys grow your business, okay? And not everything I offer is transactionable. So don't be afraid to call me. CROleader.com is the website. You can grab my phone number and email there. Love to chat with you. I love talking to MSP owners. You guys helped me write the book. It's your best practices that I've adopted, and there's so much more we can learn together and to become better. So I look forward to that. And thank you again, Danny.
Thank you. This was fun. Thank you all. Have a good rest of your day.